بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نون والقلم وما يسطرون ما أنت بنعمة ربك بمجنون وإن لك لأجرا غير ممنون وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم فستبصر ويبصرون بأيكم المفتون إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين فلا تطع المكذبين.
Akhlaq and adab, character and manners, is something that I think nobody in personal development and nobody, especially in kafir self-development, talks about head on. But the fact is that character and akhlaq and adab, these are the things that are the cornerstones. They're the essentials of masculinity, or even bigger. It's the essential of what it means to be human. But yet we don't really pay attention to these things. But what's worse than that is it's not that we don't pay attention to them. It's we're not seeing that we're already being programmed to have a certain type of akhlaq and adab from the kuffar and the empire of shaitan. Whether it comes from evil ideologies of the current day, or whether it comes from man-made philosophy, man-made understandings of what adab and akhlaq should be. But we as Muslims not only have the single greatest example of akhlaq and adab, but we also have the exact steps and systems to follow in the akhlaq and the adab of this man, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the deen of Islam, to guide us, to show us true akhlaq and true manners in society. If you follow me throughout this video, we're going to answer these three questions to help us improve ourselves to please Allah Azza wa Jal. The first question is, why is cultivating masculine character so important? What is the ideal masculine character and manners, and how do we implement the ultimate masculine character and manners into our lives practically? Because we're not just about talking stuff on the channel. So watch until the end to know all the answers to these three questions so that you can improve your akhlaq and your adab, your character and manners as a man, to please Allah Azza wa Jal. So let's get straight into it. But before you watch the video, I just want to say that we have a free trial offer for the Sultan community until the end of September 1st. So from now until the end of September 1st, the community is going to be completely free. So if you're a young Muslim man who wants to join a like-minded brotherhood of young Muslim men just like you, who improve ourselves to please Allah Azza wa Jal, then look down in the description, join the Sultan community today and benefit, have fun. I'm excited to come see you guys. Assalamu alaikum, enjoy the video. So we're going to start with a bit of a broader part of the problem of masculinity, which is a man's role in the world at large. Like, what did Allah Azza wa Jal intend for us men to be in this world? Now I'm going to use a few evidences of the Quran to back up my points here, but the first evidence is that men are the protectors and maintainers of women. That's two roles that Allah has clearly defined that men do for women, for society. The thing that's really going to hit you is this next one, and I'm going to go in depth to this, and based on Tafsir ibn Kathir. Indeed, I will make upon the earth a successive authority, a Khalifa. And they said, the Malaika, will you place upon it one who causes corruption therein and sheds blood, while we exalt you with praise and declare your perfection? So based on Tafsir ibn Kathir, this point of the angels, they're not trying to dispute Allah. They're trying to understand the wisdom behind why Allah would choose an imperfect creation to be the Khalifa on the earth. Because I mean, like, fair enough, you can see the filth of humanity all over the world, who shed blood, who murder people, who spread corruption and filth, especially now in this modern world. But Allah Azza wa Jalla says something very important that we have to take heed of as to why akhlaq specifically is so important in this video and as masculinity as a whole. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, I know that which you do not know. In Tafsir ibn Kathir, what Allah is meaning here, based on his interpretation, is that I know the benefit of creating this type of creature outweighs the harm that you mention, that which you do not have knowledge of, right? But there is some good that is of course present through Allah Azza wa Jalla's knowledge that is better than the risk of blood and evil and kufr being spewed all over the world. There is something so powerful and so pure that can be unlocked that is better than blood. So let's figure out what that is. I will create among them prophets and send messengers, and I will also create among them truthful, martyrs, righteous believers, worshippers, the modest, the pious, the scholars who implement their knowledge, and humble people, and those who love Allah and follow His messengers. So these different characteristics and traits and roles, these are the things that are better than the risk or the outweighing the bad of blood being spilled, kufr being spread, evil being spread. And if you look at all the different things that I just mentioned based on Tafsir ibn Kathir, most of the stuff that I said was characteristics. being truthful, being humble, being those who love Allah and His messengers and basically submit to them. Those who are modest, those who are pious, those who are righteous believers. These are characteristics. These are manners that you have towards Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yani akhlaq and adab as the cornerstone of what Allah is saying that the angels do not know. That would be the purer thing, that would be better, and the benefit would outweigh the worse, right? And so what is the three roles of man in society that we get from these two proofs? And we're going to go from macro all the way to micro. The first role is protection, right? That's just the role of man, whether it comes from society, from the Khalifa to the soldiers, to the Imam in the community. You protect them physically, you protect them spiritually, you protect them mentally, and even in terms of law, as a Khalifa, you protect the rights of the people. But in terms of a family, Rasulullah ﷺ said that we are the shepherds of our family, basically, and that we are responsible for our flock. So as a shepherd, you have to protect your family physically, mentally, spiritually. You got to make sure that no evil comes to them because you're responsible. So you see that a big role of man is to protect, right? And even when it comes to self-discipline, you got to protect your own iman, you got to protect your own mind, you got to protect your own self. That's our role. No one's going to come protect us. You know, of course, it's the Khalifa, but again, that's the role of man, right? And that's not real now. But this is the ultimate intended purpose. The second role is maintenance. You know, like Allah Azza wa Jalla says that men are the protectors and maintainers of women. There's a specific Arabic word to mean both of these, but maintenance in terms of society. The Khalifa is the one who is involved in maintaining the society, the Imam. And you can go from Khalifa, but I'm going to really stick with the individual level. You as a man have to provide for your family. You have to maintain them. Not only just in Iman, but also you have to maintain them physically, financially, all of it. Same thing with even yourself. You got to maintain yourself. No one's going to come and put food on your table, my man. Of course, risk is from Allah, but this is your role. This is what your job is in society. And you can see that already. These jobs are huge. You're talking about leading societies. You're talking about protecting people, saving people from evil, saving your family from evil, ordering things in terms of the order of Allah Azza wa Jal, and taking care of things like this, and maintenance. These are big roles. We're not talking about small things. And the third thing is advancement. Being a Khalifa would then tend itself to upgrading, right? To build better, which would start from society, as the Khalifa would conquer for the da'wah, or he would put reforms to make things better, and then the Imam would do the same for a community in terms of the masjid, and the people would do the same. But you specifically in your family, you got to advance their Iman, their knowledge. You're the one who's responsible of their advancement of life. Things like this, right? And even for yourself, self-development as a Muslim, to be a better man in terms of your deen and dunya. This is the same thing. These are the three roles that we share as men, that Allah Azza wa Jalla intended for us. And like I said, the most important part was that akhlaq and that adab that is the cornerstone of all these three roles, right? Because without the correct akhlaq and the correct adab, that is al-wasatiyya that we'll speak about, the balanced, right? Then these don't work. Now that we've spoken about the importance of a role of man at large, and I didn't touch on this, but even in society, in terms of advancement, if there were no men, there would be no skyscraper. Every skyscraper you see all the way up, and by the permission of Allah it stands, is all built by men in the sky, on ropes, building, literally building, for the sake of maintenance, for the sake of advancement in society. Every business, every job, all of it is advancement and growth, and even if it comes to kuffar, it's the same point. This is the growth of society that men are in charge of by the permission of Allah. And I'm not saying women can't do it. I'm saying in a general perception, this is what men are supposed to do as according to Allah. What is the state of masculinity now? If this is the intended state and the intended roles that Allah places on the men, what do men act like now in the modern world? And so point number 2 is the apocalypse of masculinity. And this is going to be where we get very, very big in the topic. And we're going to start macro again. We're going to go really close into akhlaq later. But the apocalypse of masculinity, in my view, this is now my opinions based on historical stuff. It started post-caliphate. So it started by, you can see, masculinity is dangerous, especially Rujula al-wasatiyya, right? The Rujula of the Sahaba, and of course the Rujula of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rujula based on the haqq is scary, because you look at the Muslims, and right now I'm studying Khaybar, right? Man, these Muslims, may Allah be pleased with them, they would run at castles that were bigger than them, with giant launchers thrown at them, with the Yahud, in terms of the tribes of Khaybar, who had food, they had guns, they had tanks, they had all these things, and they still just ran, just to die. They were begging to die, to please Allah. How do you defeat an army that knows that death is not the end? You can't. And you even see that in the modern world today, and with their all faults all throughout the Muslim world. There are some places, for example, Afghanistan, that's a graveyard of empires. Even the new superpowers weren't able to get through there. You see all over the world, and based on their faults, I'm not getting political, but you can see the Rujula when it's present, you can't beat them. it's all by the permission of Allah, but you can't beat them. That's why it's dangerous. And so you have to neuter masculinity because it's dangerous. And so how you neuter it is you neuter it from the core, which is akhlaq, your virtue, your manners, your adab, but your akhlaq in terms of your virtues, your morals, your ethics. And that started with the caliphate. The process in which this happened in terms of the apocalypse of masculinity, it's a global thing, but I'm focusing on the Muslim Ummah specifically. But this happened throughout the world because even the Nasara, they can also be dangerous, or kuffar, masculinity is dangerous. It starts with society. You need to take legislative power because, like I said, remember, the role of man is to protect, to maintain, and to advance. And so if you take away each pillar of how big it is, I don't know if you guys have seen this Pinterest image of like an umbrella that's like the khilafat and the father and then the family, etc. It's like these layers of protection. That's what they go through. So first you start with the country. First you got to dismantle the caliphate, which they did with a coup. Then they shattered the caliphate and enslaved all the rulers, basically, financially and physically and with guns. And then you go to the family. And once you have broken the protection of the society, now you can flood your brainwashing and filthy mindsets into society. And so what starts to happen is maybe the family, in terms of the father, now you've done the khalifa, you finished it, now you have the father. And what happens to the father? Now the khalifa is not there to protect him from the filth. Now he has access to, prostitutes, zina, drinking, every filth under the sun. And now he's being filled with this materialistic ideology, and so now all he does is live the rat race. So he just goes to a job, gets his riba, and lives and works and lives and works, and then to combat that, he just chases his desire. And so you get a docile father. You get a docile father who doesn't really have time to protect his family from the brainwashing. He doesn't have time to order his family because he's so busy at work. He's so busy with his desires based on destroying the first thing. So now you've destroyed the khalifa, then you destroy the shepherd. Next, what do? Now you just have to poison the last generation. Because now you start changing the gender roles of the woman, because now they're forced to work because the men are just destroying themselves. And now they start getting bitter, and you pump more ideologies onto them, and they poison the children because they're hurt, which logically fair. And so the children, they grew up in this world where masculinity, men in general, are demonized. And I'm talking in a whole big macro thing. But the point is, then, what do? You raise the kids. Since the mom has to work and the dad is a mess and he's also working and he's just a mess and he's in his old docile desires, the kid has no father figure. And so what does he do? He goes on the internet and he gets raised by the internet. And so the brainwashing enters his brain. And in like 2 generations, you go from Muslim warrior in the Middle East to a docile child who doesn't even know how to lift weights. Like I'm saying that as a way, like it's just coming out of my brain. But even worse, like his character and his virtue and his akhlaq has not been taught to him. Because from the khilafah you dismantle, the shepherd you dismantle, now the children, what happens? You raise more generations based on your manhaj, which is the incorrect manhaj, and you make them docile, you throw them with dopamine, you do the same thing you did with the father, and then you have a whole generation of docile men. And even crazier, you start with a counter thing where you make Islamic masculinity with misguided people look dangerous and scary, and anyone who goes close to that is a danger. When that's not true. True Islamic masculinity is the Sahaba. But yet no one wants to say that. Everyone just wants to say, no, masculinity is those guys. So how big of the brainwashing has happened where you destroy masculinity, especially from the Muslim Ummah, but even as a whole, men are neutered. And there came the overcorrections, which came the extremism in masculinity, right? So the extremism in masculine character was put in to blind us. Because once you destroy masculinity, people are going to look for solutions, right? Men in their fitrah are going to look for something that's resembling for what they want. Once they realize that, and you probably have gone through this yourself, once you realize that pleasure is useless and all of this is not the correct thing in my fitrah, this is not what Allah intended me to be as a man, you go look for a solution. And then you get 2 sides. The extremism of the left, which is this weakness and extremism and tolerance. So you have no values, you have no character to defend. You have no virtues to defend, or ethics to defend. There is no ethics in general because it's just all man-made. But okay, there's that left blue pill. I hate using these words, but okay. Blue pill masculinity, kind of liberal masculinity where you're physically and mentally weak. You're just dominated by your emotions. And you're just stuck tolerating everything. You have no ability to talk against anything. And the right, then comes the extremist red pill ideology, which is an overcorrection of that overcorrection because people realize that this didn't work. And so they were like, wait, let's just be extreme in our aggression, our arrogance, and our ego, and make some money and be some cool, and get some chicks and bang them all. I even hate saying words like that, but that's the extremist part. Both sides of the extreme. And so the Empire of Shaitan pushes both of these extremes. Guys, look, this is masculinity. And they blind you from what? From Rujula al-Wasatiyya, the balanced, moderate masculinity of Islam. This is the way that a man is supposed to exist as Allah instructed it. Not how some guy figured it out on some book. I don't even know what's called, this red pill godfather type of thing. But masculinity based upon Allah and His laws and based upon the Rasul of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But no one wants to hear that. No one wants to know about that because that's the cure. And what is that rujula grounded in? It's grounded in Akhlaq and Adab. So we talked about how masculinity has been destroyed from the top down. So the only way to build it is bottom up. And so we're going to get into how we're going to go into that through these videos. So as we can see, this is the state of masculinity. The way that Allah intended men to act, we don't act. And so the only way to fix it, like everyone's always talking about, reviving the Ummah, whatever. Like Allah Azza wa Jal says, that Allah will only basically change the condition of a nation once they change the condition of themselves. And the only way you change the condition of yourself is you change yourself first. And if lots of selves change, you change the condition of the nation. And so if we can start from the micro again, we can build up in masculinity. But what is the core? What is the fire starter of this? Akhlaq and Adab. And it seems maybe counterintuitive, but when you start with your ethics and when you start there and you build that, that's where we can build masculinity again. That is moderate, not these extremist masculinity groups crap, real masculinity. But now that we see the fall of masculinity and the resulting filth of the modern day, like it's filled with evil and extremist ideologies and a mess in the world, honestly. Akhlaq is essentially your ethics, your virtues, your character. Like it's an internal thing. And manners are the external explanation of that internal. So as we work on our manners, we can fix our character. And as we fix our character, which is an internal jihadun nafs, we fix our manners. It's kind of this inverse relationship that works with manners and stuff like that. But why do we need better character? It's like we spoke about being a walking Quran, but it's just being a better person. A part of being a better man is the way you interact with everyone, whether it comes from your Rabb or yourself or your messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam or your family or your kids. There's specific manners and character you should have. And even just being a better person in general, like we talk about being a better person, like morally speaking, this is how we do it, right? And if you want to be better to please Allah, that's the higher ROI. So make a niyyah that you want to be a better man to please Allah with your akhlaq and be a better Muslim. And even better if you want to do it for the da'wah, right? Like be a walking Quran. So okay, what are the three big themes of akhlaq and adab that a Muslim man should cultivate? The first one is your character and your manners towards your Rabb subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I learned this the hardest way when I was reading The Ideal Muslim, just for my own knowledge, right? And I found that what I was doing in my salah was a big mess, and you'll understand why. One of the things that the author of The Ideal Muslim speaks about is that the ideal Muslim man is not the type of man who just rushes out of the salah, right? Like the point of the salah is to leave this dunya for a second and connect to Allah Azza wa Jal and establish his taqwa again, right? To worship Allah. But if we're just gonna go there and do some movements and run away, we're not really stopping. We're not giving Allah his haqq in the sense that the point is to stop your day. If your day is still running in your mind, if you're immediately running back, you're not really giving the respect that the salah deserves. And I started seeing that in my life. I was doing that. Like I was genuinely just there rushing. I think the word rushing is that the one that hit me. Where it's like, am I really just treating Allah like that? Because when you describe it like that, it's fair. It's like, how can we have time for anything other than Allah? And so if that's our characteristics and our manners towards Allah, that we're just rushing him and dealing with his obligations, like, I just got to do it and then I'll move on. We don't actually care. We don't have any character towards him. We don't have any respect towards him. Is that how we are? And we expect victory. And subhanAllah. We expect to be good men, and this is how we are with Allah. We just leave him. Immediately. You go, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Gone. This isn't the characteristic of man, and I saw that in myself, right? Your manners start with Allah. If you don't have manners towards Allah and you don't have character towards Allah in terms of how you care about Allah and how you respect Allah, which is shown with your language of the tongue and the language of your actions. Your actions are a manifestation of that respect. If you just disappear, and I know it's not fard, I know, but we don't care about fard. We care about being better. And so, if you can't have that extreme amount of respect for Allah, you can't have respect for anyone, let alone yourself. If you don't respect the one who created you enough to not just disappear the moment he calls you. Like, imagine if that was your mom. You just go to your mom and like, oh, okay, fine, I'll do it, and then just run away. That's not good manners. We're doing the same thing to Allah. And so if you don't do it with Allah, you're not going to have it with anyone. And so what is emitting better manners and character towards Allah? The first part is manners, right? Which is obedience and humility to Allah's commands. The more that you submit Allah's will to your matters in your life, the more you are showing respect towards Allah and His opinion, right? Because you have a choice, right? But when you take someone's advice, and especially Allah Azza wa Jal, right? Like Allah Azza wa Jal, He knows everything. But the more that you submit yourself, the more you're showing respect to Allah. You're showing and literally physically showing that you recognize the greatness of your Rabb. And of course, that will get you a better connection with Him, and that will be correct manners. I mean, it's like the ayat in the Quran where it's not like the believer to, along the lines of this, to basically make decisions upon things that Allah and His Rasul have already made decisions on. The point is like, don't think for yourself when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told you what to do, right? But we in this world, we're so big on trying to find a way around the laws, right? But the more we are obedient, the better manners we are, because the more respect we have. The same thing with our mothers that we'll speak about. Imagine your mom. If your mom tells you to do something, you immediately ignore it. How horrible of a manner are you? That's horrible manners. We know that in our fitrah. But the same thing is with Allah, but we don't want to say it. How much sin, etc., and all of this that we do. So when we get away from that, when we obey in terms of halal and in terms of fard, and we go away from the haram, the better manners we have towards Allah. And in terms of character, that aslam, right? That submission that's not happening just because, and maybe it will start because it's obligatory, right? Because yeah, I have to. But when your heart looks at the truth and sees the proof and says, okay, Allah said it, so I'll let it happen. That's your aslam in your heart. The more that is in your heart, the more you are quite literally loving what Allah loves and hating what Allah hates. Which is also showing respect, because again, you respect Allah's opinion, you respect Allah's decisions. The same way you would respect a person. This is your Lord. Like, He doesn't make mistakes. So if we keep trying to go against Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like when people go against Him. So why are we going against Him? And we think we have better manners. That's bettering your character because you're doing it out of wanting the love of Allah. You're doing it out of wanting to please Allah instead of just your desires. Do you get my point? And so that obedience is an external, like exposition, or maybe even a start. The more you obey, the more you aslam, right? You submit, and that's gonna. Once your heart is there, that's when you're doing great in character. And also having a deeper relationship, going above and beyond with any relationship is always gonna make it better. So doing I think it's called nafil acts, right? Supererogatory acts is always going to be better. Even when you have a relationship, you have certain rights, but if you go above and beyond that, whether it's your mom or whether it's your wife or whatever in the future, you're obviously being better in trying to cultivate a better relationship, and you have better character. And so when we do that with Allah, and we of course know the hadith about supererogatory acts and how Allah loves them, we're showing Allah that we love Him. We're going above and beyond for Him. So if we weren't going to go above and beyond for anyone else, we would have to do it for Allah first, right? It's like, we say that Allah is our, and we see this with the Salaf. They went above and beyond every single time when it came to Allah. Whatever it was, above and beyond. They'd always try their best. They'd always pray at night. They'd always do whatever it took to attain that love of Allah. And why don't we do it? Because that is character, mate. That is manners. That is respect. And that is caring about Allah, right? And cultivating that relationship. And so that is what we have to do with Allah Azza wa Jal. Point number 2 is our family. Right, and I realized that my akhlaq and my adab with my family was not good. And that was actually being a negative da'wah. So I had, for the last few months, I'm a very introverted guy, right? So I don't love being with everyone all the time. But I found that I wasn't exactly the best of akhlaq towards my family, right? All the time. And that was creating negative da'wah, because the truth is that we're all banners of Islam. People don't read the Quran. Most Muslims even don't even read the Quran. They don't read the hadith. You're the one who lives them. You're the walking Qur'ans, right? The Sahaba were those walking Qur'ans, and we have to be them the same. And of course, the walking Sunnah, right? If we embody that in our akhlaq, in wanting to serve, wanting to care, Islam will be raised in their eyes, right? And why don't we want to be a part of trying to raise Islam in the eyes of the people, especially the Muslims, right? And so you got to understand that you will always be a sense of da'wah, and even we'll speak about the community aspects, but in terms of your manners and your character, you are always a representation of Islam. So we cannot be like I was, where maybe sometimes you're just like, life gets hard. I'm not saying we're all perfect, but make an effort to be better in character, because that raises Islam. Even once I was with my mother and I had read a bit more in the Ideal Muslim about character, and I like asked her if she wanted X and wanted X and wanted X, and she's like, why are you being so nice? I said that Islam teaches us to be good in akhlaq and adab, especially to our mothers, right? And you see how that is already something that's positive. And sometimes of manners, obedience. It's the same thing with Allah, but it's a bit different, right? Of course, with in terms of your parents, especially your mom, be happy and be eager to serve and be eager to obey, right? Maybe whatever is halal, right? Of course, when it comes to halal, haram, that's different. But when it's halal, be eager to serve. Be the one who first initiates it. Because most of the time we know when our mom needs something or we know when our family needs something, but we don't want to say it because then they're going to make us do it and we don't want to do it. Be that and have a niyyah that you're doing it to please Allah. You're doing it for da'wah, right? You're doing it to be better as a person, which is the point, is what we do in this, and being a better man. We got to be more obedient, you know, in that sense, and like serving in that sense. Because it shows that you respect and you care about the feelings and opinions of your mom and your family as well. You know, like, and I'm talking about best case scenario, I'm not talking about worst case scenario family. I'm talking about, you know, best case scenario type of family. Even if they're kafir parents, if they're good people, you know, this especially applies to them, even if they're parents. And so, in terms of that, obedience and serving and wanting that, and in terms of character, one thing that really hit me in terms of wanting to serve and help my mother, I have a journal down here, right? One of my journals, I think it's this little small one somewhere in the beginning, where my mother had written journal entries about me. And me reading her and how she suffered and all these things made me remind myself of an ayat where Allah Azza wa Jal says for the people to say that, my Rabb, bestow your mercy even as they cherished me in childhood. So the point is, bestow their mercy because they took care of me in childhood, right? And it's true. You know, your parents suffered, bro. Your family suffered. Whether it's financially, physically, tired, sleep, they suffered for you. So why would you not try and have some sense of obligation or some sense of thankfulness or love to show them for it? Because when someone does something for you, you want to do it for them, right? It's a reciprocal. It's just that we are not consciously aware that that happened to us. And yeah, I mean, we're not forced to be, I think it's a modern liberal thing, but we should care about our parents and be thankful for that because they were so kind to us, especially if they were kind to us, right? So show it to them. Be happy to serve them. Be happy to care about them as they served you, as they cared about you. Because ultimately, manners and care and character is about selflessness, right? This is the act of selflessness towards Allah and towards your family, right? And in terms of, you know, like even spoiling them, again, going above and beyond, the same way with Allah. With Allah, it's about not rushing and disappearing. With your parent, and even doing more above and beyond, right? And doing nafil and doing sunnah and things like that. But with your family, spoil your mom, bro. You know, one thing that really hit me deep is when Akhi Ayman spoke about how he couldn't even take his mom out anymore. He couldn't even massage his mother's feet. These are things that you don't think about until your mother's gone. And like, you don't know when that is. So take advantage of that, bro. Not just for sawab or whatever, but for your genuine care, and that's what shows good character. That yes, you have a niyyah to please Allah, but it's not about that. It's about just your akhlaq being correct, right? That this is what is good and this is what you want to do to serve people. That is what Islamically as a man you should be doing. And the third one is community. And I think this is gonna be a big one. And you see the seerah, right? The seerah and the impact of the akhlaq and the adab of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And again, you're the walking embodiment of Islam. So when you see the Muslims of the past, how they did da'wah, it's not even just like sometimes, I remember the story of, I don't know if it's authentic, I don't remember, so I'm not going to relay it, but I know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba and their akhlaq and their adab towards prisoners, towards forgiving everybody after the conquering of Mecca, that is showing Islam in you, and you are making good and granting izzah to Islam by the permission of Allah, right? By being that walking Quran. And so in terms of your community, I think this is what we're lacking. And that's what I'm saying. We got to start. First, we got to start with Allah. Then we got to start with our family. Then we got to start with our community. We got to build top up, right? And so in terms of our community, man, selflessness, fi sabilillah. How many times do we, like you see those brothers in the parking lot, they're being selfless. And Allah is best, but they're being selfless. They are there in the cold. They're there parking the cars, helping out. Why aren't we doing that? Tell me, what's the excuse? Why aren't we helping the community in some sort of way? You know, like, that is something that we don't see. Selflessness is a characteristic, and even kindness, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam always was kind, you know, in almost every situation, even to those who and forgiving. You know, like forgiving is another part of characteristics. So it's these type of things that you will learn, and we'll get into the practical situations. But it's this kindness towards people. And we're so angry to be like this and backbite and whatever. You see how filthy the akhlaq that we have these days. Honesty. is another one. We lie a lot. As an ummah, we lie a lot. And why? We're just getting sins for nothing. These are the negative things that we could be better at. Being honest, being kind, being selfless with your community. And even deconstructing and destroying filthy character. I mean, we are filled with disease of the heart, envy and ghadab and arrogance and lying and backbiting. And this is what we're filled with in terms of character, in terms of our community. Oh, this Muslim did that, and I'm not saying we're doing that, but we especially see this in our families. Like Eid, bro. People are backbiting on Eid, bro. SubhanAllah, may Allah protect us. But this is what you see what I'm trying to say by better character and better manners with the people. And of course, having that niyyah to please Allah, because then it's highest ROI in the akhirah. And so, this is what the ideal masculine character and manners look in different facets of our lives. And let's get into how to implement them practically in our lives, because we're talking about a bit more of the idealness of being a better man in terms of your character and your manners. Let's get into how we're going to do it in our own life. So there's two languages, and I've spoken about it. The language of the tongue and the language of the action. And everyone talks in this way. Like, we know there's things that we say, and munafiqun are good at that. You can say, but what you act is a representation of what you have inside. When we work on our manners, we work on our character. When we work on our character, we work on our manners. It's an inverse relation. And so when it comes to Arab, we spoke about not rushing. We spoke about doing supererogatory acts. We talk about respect. And so one of the things that the ideal Muslim spoke about in terms of the book is that, like, doing dhikr and istighfar after salah, doing adhkar. How much of us forget adhkar? And it's something that is so small that you think is not important, but glorifying Allah is something that Allah says so much in the Quran. And it shows that extra respect. It shows that extra stop. It shows that extra effort that you're putting in to please Allah to fix that relationship with Allah, to have better manners with Allah. So after you're done salah, practical thing I'm doing now, and I'm really focusing on trying to make down to have better akhlaq with my Rabb, is dhikr. Like I do tasbih, right? Like as according to the sunnah, right? And istighfar after salah. So don't rush away. Show that you care. Show that you want to cultivate this relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. Next thing, you seek knowledge. This is going to help you with your character. Go and seek knowledge on the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the biographies of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And you can go and seek knowledge on the books that I mentioned in the beginning, which are going to help you. Like, this is what I'm saying. My character changed when I seeked knowledge on character, right? Like you're doing now. Because your mindset changes, your heart is changing, because you're getting different programming. Do you get my point? The next thing is supererogatory acts of worship, whether it comes from fasting on sunnah days, where it comes from extra sunnah salah, nafil salah, tahajjud. The further you go up in difficulty, the more you are showing Allah that you love Him, right? You're going more above and above and above and beyond. Sadaqah, things like this. Any nafil acts or even sunnah acts of worship that are extra above the fard, this will show to Allah Azza wa Jal that you love Him, and you're going above and beyond for Him, and you're having better manners with Him because you care about Him, right? And it's not like Allah needs your care. It's that's what we should be as men, as Muslim men, especially as slaves of His. We should care enough that we should care about Allah's opinion of us. We should care about being loved by Allah. We should care about giving Allah His haqq, to put that deen in our heart, to change our character towards Allah Azza wa Jal. And number two is family. So in terms of family, one of the things that I did that you can do is so simple, kind words. You don't know how much, and of course there's different love languages, but anyone's gonna have fun with kind words, right? Compliments, having a respectful demeanor, lowering your wings to your parents, to your family, even to your relatives. The further down you go, even to the community, etc., the further down you go, the better you are in akhlaq. It's this thing that humanity is suffering from, this sense of individualism through democracy and capitalism. Is that it's my world and my thing. That's very animalistic. It's not very higher spiritual type of thing, where you care about everybody and you show that you care. So kind words, give a compliment to your mother every day as best you can, or say nice things, or check on her, and things like that are small that maybe you don't value. Or even go check out if your mom specifically has a specific love language and make sure that you're tending to that, caring about people. It's that type of thing where you're not being selfish, you're being selfless. You're wasting your energy. Of course you want reward in the akhirah, but you're wasting your energy to care about others. And once it's genuinely in your heart, then the akhlaq is there. You can also do a willingness to serve and a willingness to spoil. Following orders, number one, if it's halal. Even if you don't like it, like I asked my mom to, because I'm 18, right, to go to the shooting range to start learning how to shoot. And she said no when you're 21. And is that legal in democracy? Yeah, it's legal for me to go with her permission or not. But my mother said no, so I will obey the order, right? I can't just go against it. Following orders with acceptance, if it's halal, and not arguing about it and fighting about it all the time. And the next thing is going above and beyond, whether it comes from making them happy and comfortable. So in terms of happy, spoil them, randomly. What type of son buys their mother flowers in the middle of and nowhere. That's akhlaq. What type of son cares about their mother? Foot massages, things like that. Spending time with them, even going on dates with them. And like, we're so stuck. A'udhu billah in a haram relationship. You can't even take your mom out for dinner. Subhanallah. Wow, things like that that make them, even small things like getting them the remote and passing them the plate before they ask. You can proceed. To think in a selfless manner is what I'm saying. That willingness to serve, that want to serve your mother and love to serve your mother is what's gonna build your connection in terms of your akhlaq and your adab towards her. And the last thing is your community. And so in terms of community, kind words and honesty is probably gonna combat 99% of filthy actions that we do in our community. Like screaming at each other about the parking and backbiting and lying, and love for your brother what you love for yourself, right? But speak good or remain silent. Ask yourself that question every time you're in the Islamic community. No matter if you don't fit in with your family even. If you are hearing backbiting and if you're seeing negative things, just don't be a part of it. Always think that every action you should take should be positive to society. If your community or if your family even are talking about bad things, just don't do it. Frankly. Literally just think of that hadith before speaking every single time. Do not lie. Do not lie with your community, because like it's these small things that show you, and even like your word, it's these old timer things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam displayed so perfectly in his life. For example, not breaking a treaty. This is the sunnah, right? This is what he never did, and so we have to follow that as well. When you make a word, you gotta do it. Don't just be weak with your word. That's good akhlaq. That's good adab. When you give your word, you're dead serious with it, and you don't lie. You're not a liar in that sense. The biggest practical tip, other than kind words and speak good or remain silent, is initiate the salam, especially in the Muslim community. With Kafir communities, be kind, be not mean or whatever, and have patience with people who aren't perfect, because we're so easy to get angry. But with the Muslim community, one thing that we're missing is the salam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the one who is best among them is the one who greets first. So we should rush to give the salam. I don't know him. Yeah, I know. It's scary, whatever. Who cares? Salam to your left, salam to your right. Everyone you see. Maybe you feel weird. Why am I saying salam to everyone? Why not? It's a haqq of your brother to greet them with salam. So when you go to the masjid on Friday, this Friday, probably today or next week or whatever, when you go to the masjid, try and greet literally as many people as humanly possible. And I know it might be tedious, but what's the point of that? People don't like that. That's not with you. Your words with Allah. But that is good akhlaq. That is good character. And that's good adab to greet people with salam, to follow the rights of the brother. You know what I'm saying? That's a big thing that we can do that we don't like doing. And the final thing is service and selflessness. Like whether it comes from assisting anybody, whether it's in the parking, whether it's the organization of the masjid, whether it's picking up a Quran and saying, oh, can I take it for you, etc. from the masjid, or even just service to your community, to your masjid, to the people, things like that. Being a kind man. And even crazier, if you have the beard, you literally have the banner, so you are wearing the banner of Islam forever. So that would be even better if you are a service to people and selflessness. Of course there's ghulu and this, I'm not saying that, but in general principle, even something so small as somebody has a cart and you ask them if I can take it for you. Maybe people will be weird because people are like, what the frick do you care about me for? But that's good akhlaq, right? That's good character, that's good manners actually. It's good adab. Or in terms of your community, go and help out in the masjid, help out with the dawah, help out with outreach stuff, volunteer your time. You don't think of it as not being rewarded. Your niyyah has to please Allah. And so this is how we can practically improve our manners and our character as men to please Allah Azza wa Jal. And we've gone through all 3 questions now. But yeah, that's the way. The start of building this masculinity back and building the ummah back starts from changing the condition of ourselves. And the biggest point of that is our akhlaq, how we deal with people, how we deal with Allah, how we deal with ourselves. And this is such a big point that we miss. I see you're serious, brother, because you've stayed for so long. And if you are struggling with your haram habits, if you're still watching haram, listening to music, and all these things that hold you back from improving yourself to please Allah, check out the link in the description. I have an entire Annihilate Haram Habits course that I used personally to annihilate my own diseases of my heart, to annihilate my haram habits. That worked for me with the special, not exactly software, but tools and templates that helped me, that the cheat codes for me. So if you want those cheat codes, you want that information that helped me annihilate my haram habits that I want to help you, you can check out the description and you can, Insha'allah, go and acquire the Annihilate Haram Habits course if you're interested in it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.